very good afternoon. It's Thursday, the 2nd of April 2020. It's time for the daily NMH COVID-19 update. It's episode 20 today already. I'm your host, Denver Kisting, and with me today is my colleague, Jareen Hoff. Good afternoon, Jareen.
Hi, Denver, and thank you for having me.
First things first, we need to do this. We need to comply. Let's please sanitize.
Thank you.
How often per day do you sanitize, Jareen?
I wash my hands as a rule in any case at least about 20 times a day, so this is nothing new to me.
Wow, but now it's about 40 times per day.
Yes, and now it's just about reminding the kids.
Yes. Jareen, speaking about the kids, you wear a number of hats simultaneously generally. In particular, I'm interested in two hats that you're wearing at the moment. One being a journalist, but also being a mother. How are you coping? How are you holding up?
Well, Denver, in terms of being a journalist, I've been in the fortunate position that I've been working from home for more than a year already, so this is just an extension of that. But in terms of a mother, I have to tell you it is a bit worrisome. I had a dream last night that my kids were sick, and when I woke up I wasn't sure if it's the truth or reality, or if it really was just a dream. So it does give you heart palpitations, let me tell you.
I can imagine. It's quite challenging and very difficult at the moment.
Yes, and keeping them busy. Look, they've been at home for 2 weeks already. So all the little games that we have all been played already.
Yeah, what's cool about this daily show is we also bring tips for parents on how to constructively keep their kids busy. Now, some of you might remember we spoke to Vilen Hifindaka earlier. In fact, the first day in our first broadcast, when the first 2 positive COVID-19 cases were confirmed in Namibia. So he's a Namibian lawyer based in Italy, and he's been in lockdown for longer than 30 days. Let's hear how he is doing.
Week of February this year. That means I've been under lockdown conditions for more than 30 days now. And well, the situation is becoming normal here in Turin. People have followed the lockdown conditions. They are adhering to them. In fact, the police has a €200 fine if you are caught outside roaming around too far from your house or after 6 p.m. Now, €200 is around 3,000 Namibian dollars, just to give that perspective. So people are taking it very seriously. Social distancing, even at supermarkets, is strictly enforced. You need to keep a space, a distance of 2 meters from the next person outside in a line before you even get in the supermarket. And then when you get into the supermarket, only a certain amount of people are allowed in at a certain time, at the same time, just to ensure that there's no overcrowding and people don't get into contact. Also, sanitizers and gloves are also provided by the supermarkets. At this time, the Italian government is discussing more packages, more stimulus packages actually, to help the economy, and the Senate of Italy is actually considering extending this quarantine by a further 12 days. Now, from what I've read from local newspapers, a period of about 49 days is what they are saying is optimal for quarantine, to make sure that it doesn't break out again after a lockdown is ended. But yeah, those are the situation. That is the situation rather here in Turin, Italy. And the real challenge, I think the real problem is just the basic human contact, being able to have a conversation with someone face to face, and physical touch, which is I think something that human beings need. Hello, I'm Vilen Hifindaka. I'm speaking to you from Turin, Italy. I'm an
Jareen, I'm so impressed with how Vilen manages to keep calm and collected. I don't know whether I would have been able to do that.
Not at all, especially if you realize that there might still be a lot of extra days coming onto your restricted movement.
Exactly, and he landed in Italy just before the pawpaw struck the fan in February, studying towards a master's degree in law. But he's doing well, land of the brave, being taken to Italy.
And we really are represented all over the world these days.
Absolutely, and so is COVID-19, it seems.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Our sports colleague spoke to someone earlier too, Jareen.
Yes, that is closer to home, and it's a very positive message. Of course, Frank Fredericks needs almost no introduction. Our Namibian Sun Sport colleague Limba Mpatani spoke to him earlier.
Stay tuned for that one.
Good morning.
Morning, Mr. Frank.
Yes.
Just what we spoke about a bit earlier this morning. Are you able to speak to me?
Yes, that's fine.
Yes, of course. You being one of the most decorated athletes of all time, you started a 21 lockdown challenge. How difficult do you think it is maybe for athletes now that are so used to training outdoors? Like if you look at the marathoners, the guys that do swimming and whatsoever not, and also now with the Tokyo Olympic Games being cancelled and rather postponed, is there maybe a motivation message that you can send to these guys as we face lockdown and so forth?
Yes, I think these athletes are probably going through the most difficult time in their lives. I think, they were training to compete at the Olympic Games in July this year, and of course, they have to now change their whole mindset and change the whole program because now it's next year. But I think during this time, I think they should just try to keep fit. They should try to stay healthy. They should try to stay at home because if you get this virus, then all your dreams of whatever you wanted to achieve at the Olympic Games will all be in vain. So I think the most important is that you are healthy, you keep yourself safe, and I think once we are over this virus or the pandemic, I think then they can start thinking about planning ahead for the Olympic Games. I think they still have a long time. It's more than a year.
Yeah.
So that's enough. I think you can fine tune and get your mindset in to start competing for the Olympic Games. I think it's not a deterrent. I think it's probably just hard for the Olympic runners. But since our lockdown is not complete, that you have to stay indoors, that you can, I think for the marathoners and these athletes, they can probably still train. I think the legislation is saying that they should just not be in more groups of more than 3. So I think they can still continue to go out there and do their long run. I think that is probably the most difficult because they have to work on their endurance.
Yes, of course. In one of your videos, day 4, you were listening to some reggae. Is it safe to say that you are a reggae music fan?
No, I was just missing Lucky Dube. I was just listening to his music. He was one of my favorites.
Okay. So maybe just besides training and with the videos and whatsoever not, what are just some of the things that you're maybe doing around your house at the moment? Maybe you have been you've been meaning to fix a door that has been broken for the last 2 months or whatsoever. What are just some of the things that you're doing apart from exercising and so forth?
I'm keeping up myself with some of the movies that I did not watch. Watching a few series. I'm reading books. I'm catching up with a lot of work that I'm behind. Many emails that I've not answered. Many Facebook messages that I've not answered.
Of course.
And many of the companies that are behind with accounting things. So I'm keeping busy and just make sure that I think the most important is that I do my exercise in the morning because then I'm ready for the day.
Okay, fantastic.
Welcome back. This is episode 20 of the daily NMH COVID-19 update. Jareen, I think Frank has a very serious point. One can catch up on reading. All those books next to one's bed that one bought a few years ago but never got to, now's an optimum time to get to those.
And also, if you run out of books to read, there's always Kindle.
Absolutely. And I think what he also says, and that message is very clear, it's better to have postponed the Olympic Games until next year than to never ever being able to host such events again. And if you are healthy, please make sure that you remain healthy and stay fit where you are and where you can.
And you can do a lot of these exercises you can really do at home. You don't have to go out, and you don't have to put yourself in danger.
Absolutely. So, as promised earlier during the show, and we streamed it live later during the day, State House brought us up to speed about what's happening in the country. President Hage Geingob called a press conference yesterday, and what we do know is that the numbers have gone up. At the moment, we stand at 13 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Namibia. As far as negative results are concerned, and you can see it on the screen at the moment, 252 of such cases, discarded 38 and inconclusive 3. Jareen, our colleague Dani Boyson spoke to the Health Minister Kalumbi Shangula for clarity on exactly what would amount to a discarded case. So during elections, we also have some ballot papers that can't be used. So it's a test result that for whatever reason cannot verify the results. So such a test would need to be repeated. So I think part of the panic is that we are struggling with the maths. So we want to know exactly how many people were tested, how many of those tested positive, and how many of those tested negative.
And we want the numbers to balance.
Absolutely. It's very important.
Because those ones that don't balance are the ones that actually make us worry.
Exactly, exactly.
I think out of that, everyone is most afraid for this baby. Children always raise a lot of emotions, and I think in this case, a small baby is really, it makes one worry.
No, absolutely. And just as far as that's concerned, the way we behave in social media, experts in that domain have earlier warned that that is not new. That's actually the people that we are. Social media just amplifies those aspects of us. Because I also saw a lot of criticism against the mom who infected her baby and her life partner. We don't know exactly what the circumstances were, and we don't know if we were in her shoes, whether we would have done things differently.
Exactly, and I think at this stage it really is important that you just don't judge. Don't judge. You don't know what it feels like being in that mom's shoes.
Absolutely. Part of what was announced yesterday are also some measures, Doreen, how to assist the most needy amongst us. So government is extending a number of lifelines to the tune of 8.1 billion Namibia dollars. These measures, these lifelines will be reviewed depending on the length of the lockdown. At the moment, we know that our lockdown lapses on Saturday, the 17th of April at 1 minute to midnight. So just a bit of analysis on the aid, 1.1 billion for medical equipment, 3.8 billion for value-added tax refunds and payments to suppliers to make sure there's continuous cash in the economy. Perhaps you can also take us through the rest, Jareen.
Good. For households and employees, there's also very good news with an emergency income grant that was announced, which with an estimated cost at 562 million, which is specifically aimed at the informal sector and those that don't receive any forms of other assistance. Then, of course, there's also loans for a loss of income valued at 1.1 billion, and which is the same as 1 month of annual tax contribution. For the provision of water, 10 million has been set aside. Then I'd also like to add to that from the business sector, they said 400 million wage subsidies in tourism, construction and other hard-hit sectors, and for the SMEs 500 million, and a loan scheme of 200 million for our agricultural sector from the Agribank, and possible payment holidays from the DBN and Agribank as well.
Indeed, and you know, our Minister of Finance, Ipum Bushimbi, was very clear. This system is not made available. This aid is not available to be abused. So just those in dire need, and just those direly affected, especially the small business owners by COVID-19, are the ones who are allowed to access this help. And what he also said, those of us who are not paying tax, whilst we are supposed to be paying tax, we're actually granting the government permission to look into our bank accounts. And if they establish that you're supposed to be paying tax, you haven't been paying tax, you will henceforth pay tax. So please do not abuse the system. You mentioned it earlier before we went on air, Jareen. It's going to be interesting to see how this will be practically implemented.
Yes, we'll have to wait and see. The banks already announced that they are going to be doing it by on a case-by-case basis, and I think this is vitally important. Honestly, don't go and ask for a repayment holiday if you can afford to carry on paying. It's just going to make it worse for yourself in the long run, and it's also going to be taking away funds from people that really do need it. So really consider your co-Namibians and your fellow Namibians and even your neighbor.
Absolutely. So, as I've been the custom over the past couple of days, our correspondents and journalists in the regions tell us exactly how the communities are receiving the news about the lockdown, about the state of emergency. So, let's take a look at those contributions.
Morning, morgen meneer, hoe gaat het?
Nee, alright man.
Wat is uw naam?
Isaac,
Isaac, van waar af kom meneer?
ik kom van Joburg af.
Van Joburg af. En u gesukkel om hier in Namibia te komen?
Nee, ik is niet gaan cirkel. Zuid-Afrika is een grens. Ik cirkel net iets over die. Bij Namibia is een grens.
Hoe kom? Wat is die probleem?
Papieren.
Wat is fout met die papieren?
Nee, we cirkel net die system was down.
Oh, hoe komt het zo is?
Ja.
Maar oorgaans is het makkelijk om hier te komen?
Ja, het is bijna makkelijk om hier te komen.
Is het? Wat draai je?
Het was 300.
Waar toe gaan die hoenders?
Windhoek toe.
Windhoek toe?
Ja.
Om te op slag wordt. Namibia Poultry of iets anders?
Poultry.
Namibia Poultry?
Ja.
Is dit?
Ja.
En hoe is die paaien zo ver? Wat is uw indruk van coronavirus? Is u niet bang niet?
Ons is bang want ons weer bij andere wereld. Die coronavirus maakt mensen dood, die gaan vinnig en.
Ja, nee. En wat doen jullie om voor uzelf te beschermen tegen coronavirus?
Alle check ons onze handen was en het lafstandsset.
Ja, nee, je moet veilig rijden. Baie dankie.
Baie dankie.
So, conditions here, they are very quiet. Normally we used to have this bay fully loaded with trucks and movement of travelers and so on and so on. So as you can see at this stage, we only have 1, 2, maybe 4 or 5 trucks. These people are licensed only to carry essential goods, meaning food, medicine, and other goods that are certified as essential. Companies are obliged to actually pre-apply to be licensed so that it be defined, so that we don't have people that come with things that are not important at this stage, so they have to be licensed. It's quiet. The South African border is closed down, no movement in and out for travelers. Even returning residents, they are not allowed to enter into South Africa. We still facilitate Namibians to return to Namibia, yet they are subject to a mandatory quarantine of 14 days. Currently our quarantine facilities are in Karasbek. Here we don't have facilities, but as you might have seen earlier, there is a truck whereby if immediate cases are discovered, then they have to be quarantined. It's just a truck that Ministry of Health has provided for emergency cases, so it can only take 1 or 2 persons at a time. But there's an evacuation process in place whereby travelers, once they are discovered to have any symptoms of COVID-19, then they will be moved to facilities that are prepared by Ministry of Health in Karasbek. Other than that, we are having a very quiet problems with travelers trying to cross the border. I think people are coping very well, and I think the situation is totally under control at this stage.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Yes, can you just explain who you are for our viewers and where we are?
We are at Ariamsville Border Post. I am the acting Chief Immigration Officer for this duty station.
Your name?
Pietro Hansen.
Okay.
Yes.
And would you walk us through the border post and just explain to us the different processes that are here?
Yeah, I think it's better if we start from here if we have that view. This is actually the arrival portal of the border. You would see travelers, they would arrive from that side. What you see in front of you is the South African side of the border. And then they come, this is where we receive them for arrival. So basically the process is quite simple. Firstly, customers, when they come, they would be screened. We are hosting Ministry of Health and Social Services. Their port health facility is here. So actually we have a screening room whereby all travelers upon arrival must be screened. So I mean, if you move in there, I'll show you. They do a basic screening of the temperatures, of the body temperature of every traveler. They are also obliged to complete this form so that we can study the the movement and the history of this traveler and the origin of where they are coming from and so on. So they will basically be screened by our port health officials. If they don't pick up, I think the temperature is 36.
It should not exceed 37.5.
It should not exceed 37.5. So once that is cleared, the traveler will be allowed to proceed. Namibians at this stage are exempted from completing forms, but all our foreign travelers, once we receive them, they are supposed to complete the arrival and departure forms.
Pensioners are queuing up here at Nampo's Dwarvish Way in town for their pension.
I'm here in Henties Bay, that is in the Erongo region, and it is day 5 of the partial lockdown which has been implemented by the head of state Hage Geingob in the Erongo region as well as the Khomas region. And as we can see, the Henties Bay SME Center is completely quiet. It's dead. There is absolutely no one here. The doors are locked, and this used to be a place where many of the entrepreneurs who had things to sell would thrive on the market and made or took the opportunity to make their services and products well known to the public and made an extra buck from their products and services. As you can see, it is very quiet. No entrepreneurs are currently here, and as we get a little bit closer to see that inside this park is well, it used to be a place really where entrepreneurs would sell their things in a place that is well located, in a place where people could come and could easily access, and they could have a place to sell their goods. And it was really a good platform and initiative by the Henties Bay municipality to introduce this. But as you know, the region is currently under lockdown, and this does not really qualify as an essential service. So probably many of these people have been left for the next 2 to 3 weeks without an income, and probably looking for other avenues to generate income in order to put bread on the table. So Henties Bay in general is very quiet. People are adhering to the precautionary measures that have been put in place to make sure that the COVID-19 pandemic, which also has found itself in the Republic of Namibia, does not continue to spread. It is day 5 of the partial lockdown which has been implemented and which is being enforced in the Erongo region as well as the Khomas region. I'm here at the Henties Bay beach, and as you can see, it's very, very, very quiet. Not a single soul in sight here at the Henties Bay beach. Usually this used to be a hub of activity, a place where people would come and spend time with their families and loved ones, and absolutely not a single person in sight here, not anyone relaxing at the beach here. The weather is actually not that bad. I would say it's probably the kind of weather that is very suitable, especially for someone that is used to this kind of weather at the coast. So not an excuse at all. The weather is not an excuse why the beach is empty, but not a single person here. Really would have been a nice time to have a picnic here, but as we know, lockdown is lockdown, and the partial lockdown precautionary measures does stipulate that you are only allowed to be gallivanting and roaming around. Not roaming and gallivanting, but you're not allowed to basically walk around in town or anywhere if you do not, or if you're not doing anything that is considered an emergency. We're in a state of emergency right now, and people have been told to only go outside to get the basic needs that they need, which is food as well as medication and other very important essentials. So it does show that Henties Bay is really adhering to the precautionary measures that have been put in place to prevent and mitigate the COVID-19 pandemic.
In Pionierspark is die strate in hierdie gebied redelik stil met geen misdade wat tot dusver aangemeld is nie. Erik Burger van die buurtwag het gesê hulle het nog geen probleme ondervind nie, maar dat inwoners van Pionierspark uitbreiding 1, Kleine Koepe, Simbasia en Hooglandpark al misdade aangemeld het. In Kleine Koepe was daar Sondag aand alleen reeds 3 pogings om in huise in die gebied in te breek. Volgens Johan Engelbrecht van die Kleine Koepe buurtwag is die grootste probleem die feit dat daar bouers steeds op boupersele bly en aanhou werk. Hy het gesê hierdie is altyd 'n probleem, maar nou is die risiko groter. Die probleem is reeds met die stadspolisie opgeneem. Volgens sy inwoner op Elisenheim was daar nog nie enige probleme daar aangemeld nie en is hy beïndruk met die feit dat sekuriteit sedert die inperkingstydperk reeds opgeskerp is.
Welcome back to episode 20 of the daily NMH COVID-19 update. We're indebted and grateful to our colleagues for traveling the length and breadth of Namibia to bring us up to date about how the respective communities are receiving the news about the state of emergency, the lockdown, and exactly where we find ourselves as a country, Jareen.
Yeah, thank you, Denver. I must also just give a shout out to all my colleagues. They are really wonderful in providing all this information. I'd like to add to Leandria's bit on the payouts at NamPost for grants. She said that they have discovered that it is really an issue with social distancing at these payouts, and that is why NamPost specifically said that people don't have to come on a specific day to get their payouts. They can come at any time of the month. It will be easier, then less stress and less people closer to each other. So everybody getting grants, please take note.
Apologies just for the caption. It said that Leandria was in Ariamsvlei. She was in fact, of course, at Walvis Bay. I had a call from our colleague Ogita Gregg from the central north of the country earlier. He says his sense is, and that's also his personal sense, that Namibians don't really understand what it means to have a state of emergency. You know, we've only had one such state of emergency relating to what happened in one of our regions in 1999. But the Minister of Justice, Yvonne Dosap, explained it so well yesterday, Jareen. She says nothing is normal. That is what we need to bear in mind in the very first place. But she says they have received complaints and from all over the country about law enforcement officials who don't really know how to police it. So people have been told to go back into their houses instead of being allowed to be in their gardens, in their backyards. So she says residents, as it is ordinarily understood, it does mean that people are allowed to be on their premises. We also know that people live in backyard flats. People's domestic setups vary across the country. As long as you don't leave your premises for purpose of essential services, of course, you're allowed to be in your garden, you're allowed to be in your backyard. Just bear that in mind. We also understand that the message hasn't filtered through completely to these officials on the ground, but the authorities are hard at work to get the message through, and that's also why we're here, to make sure you get the correct information as it unfolds, because it changes all the time, Jareen.
That's true. And the essence is remain safe and don't go out if it is not necessary. Leandria also mentioned that especially in Kwizetmund they had issues because there are 6-7 families living on one small property. So as it is, they are already in very close confines, and sticking together when you are more than 10 people around a pot that's cooking is not a recipe for disaster, but it is something that you really have to be careful about. And listen to the authorities. They are there for a reason, and it's there really for your own good.
Absolutely. Jareen, over the last couple of days, we've also seen the business community strengthen the efforts of government, Namibia Media Holdings. We've also done our part to make sure that Namibians are safe and their lives are protected, but also that essential goods and services are provided to all Namibians throughout this period. So our colleague Frank spoke to a business leader earlier, I believe.
Yes, he spoke to Dr. Sven Thieme, and it was a very insightful interview. We're ready to go to it.
Stay tuned.
Whether you are in the bush, on the beach, or in a boardroom in Budapest, with Salt's desktop exchange point, you and your team can work on the same document at the same time, chat and video conference from any location. Just as if you're sitting in the same room. It's super. Salt brings together the power of Microsoft Teams and Logitech to deliver a teamwork experience that is out of this world. Increase profitability and responsiveness while enabling stellar collaboration experiences to your customers and empowering your colleagues. And make you a magnificent productivity multiplying machine. Work from anywhere, anytime, any device. Salt, in collaboration with Microsoft Teams and Logitech. Our business is enabling yours. Okay, now click for all the info.
Good day. Today we have the pleasure of inviting Mr. Sven, actually it's Dr. Sven Thieme from the Althaven List Group. He's the executive chairman of the group, and we asked him for his opinion just to reflect a bit on the COVID and whatever's happening in the country at the moment with all the implications of the COVID. So can we switch over to... Hi, Dr. Thieme, welcome to the show. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly.
Okay, just quickly, first and foremost, you as executive of Althaven List, obviously one of the biggest employers in the country. How have you experienced COVID so far, and what have you taken as measures against this sickness?
Yeah, of course. I must firstly say, when we heard the confirmation some 2 weeks ago of the first cases, it was not a surprise, but it was reality that this was eventually on our doorstep, and that obviously triggered a lot of thinking and what's going to happen now and what's going to be left of us and so forth. And then obviously as teams, as you may know, we have a fairly large executive throughout the groups, which means all the various managing directors, including myself and group leadership team, immediately met and formed task teams and see what we're going to do now. The first priority was by no means our own group to see how do we keep our employees safe, how do we keep the business going, and that time it wasn't clear yet what was the essential service or essential business. That will obviously then to unfold in the next days. Yeah, in the meantime, obviously with various work streams, you sort of get everything under control. And I mean not under control, at least there's an approach for every risk we have. And I'm fairly comfortable at the moment that we have identified the necessary risk and counted them as much as possible, and this now allows us to look beyond our own group.
Which is really welcome at this time of the year, or at the stage of this whole outbreak, because I think what happens is people start just seeing the downsides and not realizing how important it is for all of us to just start being okay. In other words, staying indoors, assisting the government to get this thing done, And yes, obviously we all bleed, but that automatically brings me to the announcement of the Minister of Finance yesterday. How do you view that announcement?
No, it's a very welcoming step. There's no two ways about it. It's obviously a combination of what needed to be done anyway by, all the VAT returns and other taxes that need to be paid and refunded whenever necessary. And then the other part of the package is, of course, to provide and help businesses to survive this very critical period. So very welcome coming overall. And I think this gives hope to many businesses, and it gives hope also to see what else one can do. I think very important is that we do not lose our hope for what we need to do. And I think once we've got hope and commitment and the feeling that you get supported, I think that gives the opportunity to make our businesses survive.
Yes, and exactly, that's really what it is. It's survival for all of us, and let's face it, without any government assistance, we are all more or less doomed. And I just think Namibia in this regard is quite a step ahead of most African states for sure, but I would dare say even in comparison to some European states and even America. So the next question is obviously, with you also being the president of the Namibian Chamber of Commerce, how do you see the contribution which you as a chamber can make towards settling issues a little, get the nerves settled a bit, and maybe have a message of hope to the people out there?
Yeah, the NCCI obviously has an overarching role to play. We're serving on the private sector COVID-19 task team, which feeds in the information from the private sector, and not only the NCCI, but various private sector stakeholders to help and overcome issues such as helping with the various regulations, the borders, helping of allowing trucks to go through with the essential, allowing with defining what's an essential service, what's an essential business, which is obviously a fairly cumbersome process, as we've never been in the situation where we all of a sudden have to, are challenged with all the regulations that have been put into place, because the one thing is designing and writing regulations. The other side is the implementation. And when it comes to implementation, that's a separate issue now, and that's where we played a significant role in sharing what are the concerns on the ground, what is the things that people suffer most with, what is that holds them back right now. And in that task force, these things are being discussed and ways found. And I must honestly tell you, the government has done a splendid job. 24 hours, I think. I'm slowly getting tired even of my WhatsApps at the moment, but we've all been connected 24 hours all the time together with government to see what else we can do to overcome this difficult period right now, especially looking at the economy. It doesn't help we've got a healthy nation in our economy. So somewhere we need to find a balance to keep the economy going at the same time.
Yeah, it's actually quite funny, and if one looks at Great Britain at the moment, they seem to slowly but surely trying to look at the possibility of actually testing people, and those that have been negatively confirmed, sort of bit by bit allowing them to get back into work, and then rather only sifting out the people that are possibly at risk, and then just focusing your attention on them. In the meantime, allowing the rest of us to carry on and do their business, which I think is quite important. So sooner than later, we will have to follow some form of practical approach, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think the opportunity here is, again, and I think we have the 21 days lockdown, and perhaps it will be extended, we don't know yet. But if everyone behaves disciplined in that period, in those 21 days, and maybe a little bit more, we can overcome this issue. The problem is that some people do not take this thing seriously and ignore the social distancing, ignore what government is trying to do by containing the virus. So I think we need to stay focused in arresting the situation, and then we can, kick off again everything else. But that's the challenge right now. There's ignorance of many people or arrogance. I don't get it, and that's a big issue. Hopefully that we will overcome somehow. Everybody takes it extremely serious, and it's only 21 days or a little bit more in your life. That's supposed to be enough motivation to really comply with all the requests that's currently out there.
Yes, I agree with you. It boils down to something that Dr. Hifindaka actually said to me the other day. He simply reckoned that Namibians need to learn to be law-abiding, apply discipline in your life. And so I think these words of you are really heartening. I'm glad that you are still positive about what can and should happen to our country. And I would like to thank you very much for this interview. That was Dr. Thieme of the ONL Group and also President of the Namibia Chamber of Commerce. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it, and good luck. Let's keep sticking.
Yeah, it seems to me we lost that last part, but I'm actually quite sure that Dr. Thieme was telling us to stick true to what the government has asked us to do, apply discipline, be law-abiding, stay at home. Yes, we all need to do some shopping, but at the end of the day, we also need to live. And in order to return back to our normality as we knew it before, which is likely to always be a bit impacted on after this, but to at least reach some form of normality, we, I think, are all in agreement that we need to get through this. And getting through this means staying at home so that we can go back to work as early as possible and somehow assist our employers to keep us all employed. Thank you very much.
Denver, yes, I think Dr. Thieme summed it up very nicely there. Namibians really need to be disciplined, and we really need to take care of ourselves. Like you said, 21 days is a short time in your life.
Absolutely.
And the least you can do to save your country and save yourself.
Absolutely. A few things that stood out for me from that interview, Jareen. I think many chief executive officers in this country, many managing directors will agree with him. It's a very difficult balance to strike between keeping your business operations going efficiently, smoothly, and cost effectively, and at the same time ensuring the safety of your employees. I'm very happy I'm not a CEO at the present moment. But also, you know, he says the relief provided by government, as announced by the Minister of Finance, Mr. Ipumbushimbi, yesterday, is a very welcome relief. I think he said that it's something that should have happened earlier in any event, but it's something that was amplified by the COVID-19 crisis, and the balls are in motion. What he said in terms of what you just said, how we need to learn to behave. If we do behave, if we do comply with the regulations, we'll be able to get rid of this virus and continue with our lives as soon as possible. But remember, a healthy nation also needs to be part of a healthy economy. So many things need to happen simultaneously, and they change all the time.
For sure. What I am glad about is that I saw that he really is embracing technology. And isn't that just amazing with what technology can do for you today?
But that's part of the gift that COVID-19 is providing to all of us, Jareen. We have the opportunity to learn new skills. We do have the opportunity to learn to work more efficiently and optimally make use of technology.
And adapt.
Indeed, or die. Jareen, you earlier said that having kids at home during this lockdown period could get challenging. So what we've committed to in this daily broadcast is to share with you tips for parents with kids to make sure that they're busy constructively.
Good day.
everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Crystal, and I'll be sharing some couch tips with you today. So first of all, what we have to do firstly, and that is sanitizing our hands. Remember that this is a priority in our lives right now, so get that sanitizer between your fingers, on your thumbs, and on your palms. Just rub it in there really good. So the next thing that we need to remember is to always keep our mouths moist, stay hydrated all the time. So drink a sip of water every now and again. It's nice and fresh and you need water. So I'd like to talk about our studio. As you know, that this is our workstation for the next couple of days. We make use of the studio, and if you have a message or if you would like to just make use of the studio, please WhatsApp us on 0811 7010. And if you do have any other couch tips that you'd like to share with us, please also share it to that number. That's 0811 7010. So I've been sitting in this position for quite some time, and I'm sure you viewers at home are also cuddled up on your couches. So if you would like, you can just stretch your legs out there and just roll your feet around so that you can just get some blood flowing through your legs now and again as well. So you can just do this 5 or 10 times on either side of your feet, and that's it. So remember to share that information with us. Share your fitness tips that, you know, us couch potatoes wouldn't really think of. And thank you so much for tuning in. We'd like to hear from you. Stay safe. Goodbye.
We are back. I'm very grateful for our colleague Crystal Ferris for helping with those couch potato tips. I saw something on Facebook earlier, Doreen. It said summer's body's got to wait for 2021 because COVID-19 happened. But it need not wait until 2021 when we make use of those beautiful couch potato tips.
And they also said if you want to keep yourself away from the fridge, keep your mask on at all times.
That sounds like constructive advice. We've just received news from Marintal that apparently the town is underwater. We're following that up, and we provide you with the fully updated story as soon as possible. We hope it's not a tragedy, and we hope it's a situation that can be managed as best as possible.
Yes, in the meantime, I'd like to thank our viewers from Marintal that I saw have already tuned in. We also have viewers from Ongwediva and from Vitvlei.
Wow, I'm happy that Vitvlei has a reliable internet connection, Jareen.
Sometimes I think they are luckier than we are.
They might be. So our plea is also on a daily basis to please share some positive news with us. To please share some positive pics, some videos, whatever you might have. We are waiting for those, and we'd love to share those. The WhatsApp number that you can make use of is 0811 7010. 0811 7010. You'll be seeing some birds on your screen at the moment, right, Jareen?
Yes. You see, they are still free and out and about in nature.
They might be even more free at the present moment.
And look at that. When we got the submission, it said, well, look, even the weeds are growing, but they look very pretty.
Indeed, and we are happy for things that do look pretty. They brighten up our day at this point in time.
Thankfully, the rains came at just the right time, because now, in spite of us being locked up at home, we at least have the beautiful nature to enjoy as well.
Yes, Jareen, I need to express a bit of concern at this point in time. We haven't sanitized for more than half an hour.
Oh no, Denver. Thankfully, we're a meter apart.
Thankfully, I accept full responsibility for it, so let me take charge.
Thank you. And then I should be all set until next week,
You
when I
should
join
be.
you again for this program.
But just remember to wash your hands in the meantime.
More than the 20 times than I already do.
Yes. Jareen, thank you so much for being a lovely co-host today.
Thank you, Denver, for this opportunity. I'm looking forward to next time.
There you have it. This was episode 20 of the daily NMH COVID-19 update. Thank you for tuning in. Please share this broadcast, share the good news, but also share whatever is happening in your community, and we'll spread it further. Goodbye.